I was wondering if you had the "Make America Great" hat beside you there, going on the side of your couch there, but
Yeah,
it's
right
a
there,
golf
right
hat.
there. This is actually make the world great, Dan. You see, that's what I'm all about. I'm all about let's not worry about one particular country. Let's worry about all of the world. Make the world great
I
again.
agree. I agree. I agree. So today is the season finale of the NRDD Business and Sales Coaching Show. We're going to take a break for the holiday season. Got a lot of things kind of on the horizon for all y'all. Nick and I are going to have an impromptu day today. It's one of the first days where we didn't do any production. And you know what? So far as we're sitting here, we haven't had any production issues. So it's amazing what happens when we go in ad lib, how things don't go wrong, or and how
That's
that all
quite
works.
funny. That's quite funny. Yeah. The only time we
What's
decide
that?
we're going to go absolutely, the only time we decide we're going to go absolutely improv with nothing planned, everything works perfectly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Either that or it's taken us, 12 shows to iron the wrinkles out. One of the two. One of the two. So, it's a very interesting day today. This is my third live today. So a lot of you are probably sick of seeing Dan Deegan is live in your feed. But it's one of those days where, Nick, you ever had those days where your perspective is blown like one, two, three, four times over?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
It's it's wild how I had a conversation this morning. Based on that conversation, my perspective got blown, and I'll share with you the three of them, and I'd love to kind of dig in and play with this a bit with you. So my whole thing was 2008, 2009 when the economy fell out. The word that came out, in my opinion, was value. Right? How do we add more value? So if a customer wants $10 value, or $10, how do we add $20 worth of value to get that customer's 10 kind of thing? My word that came out of 2020 was pivot, right? Because you heard it so much this year. Oh, you got to pivot, and then you got to pivot again, then you got to pivot again, then that pivot needs to happen again, then again. And then Sarah Barnes Humphrey this morning, who's going to be part of the expert sales panel, who you're going to meet at the summit, said, it's actually, what do you think of the word perspective? And I went, wow, even better. Because as we sit here right now, right, we have a mental health perspective. We have a sales perspective. I know you in New Zealand, from a lockdown perspective or from a virus perspective, you guys are doing really well. But I mean, we have a small business perspective. I just had blown again was a conversation I was having with Steve Ferreira. He's an ocean expert. And he said, think about it. Disneyland, Disney World, all these major theme parks, all the stuff from the theme park comes from overseas. Another perspective blown because we're sitting there going, oh my Lord, like they're, as much as overseas is busy, they're also kind of half producing what they would, because a lot of these places that are shut down that nobody's visiting, right? The resorts and everything, all of that stuff comes from overseas. We started talking about the airline industry and how a lot of their stuff comes from Germany, and that's dead, null and void. I mean, when you start thinking about the rock that's been thrown in the pond and the ripples that have come into shore, it starts to really blow your mind. Have you had any of those kind of aha moments lately?
Well, yeah, and look, what I'd like to do, Dan, because I know you're never really, excuse me, you're never really a big fan of giving it the full plug. So let me give it the full plug for a second, right? So, guys, what Dan is talking about with all these lives he's doing, all these people he's talking to, is last year there was set to be the biggest transport logistics forum, the HPS Summit, to take place in Canada, and I was flying over there, and we had lots of other key speakers and wonderful people that are going to be on this panel. This is taking place, and it's taking place on the 11th of December. It is going to be amazing. If you're in sales, and I'm going to do a good plug here, right? Because if you're in sales and you're confused about how to look after your clients, or you're in sales and you're looking at going, I'm setting up meetings, but they're not sticking. I'm not getting my Zoom meetings to stick anymore. If you're in sales and you just pipeline, you just don't feel you've got the strength in the pipeline that you need to be able to hit your numbers, this is the absolute conference. This is the absolute event for you. If you're in transport and logistics, this is the only event for you. It's the only way I can say it. This is the one where you're going to find out the challenges that your actual customers are having and what they actually want you to do. We're going to have a panel of these people up there to talk about what it is they want you to do for them. how you can look after them. So this is going to be an amazing summit. The HPS summit. It's not just based around transport logistics. It's based around high performance and understanding high performance mindset. We've got Marcus Ogden, who is a high performance specialist. His story was riches to riches to rags to riches again. How do you go from losing everything and having millions of dollars, NFL All-Star, gridiron player, to then becoming one of the most successful, international public speakers and getting recognized for your book?
Well, not only that, Nick, in between, he was a custodian. So he went from literally multi-millionaire NFL All-Star to janitor. Now, no offense to anyone that's a janitor watching this, but when you're an NFL All-Star worth multi-millions of dollars, to go to a janitor, that's a big mindset shift, right? That's a big, that like internally. I mean, I've often asked Marcus, and sometimes these are one of the things, Nick, where sometimes I don't think it does it justice when he talks about it, because I'm thinking of the mind screw that would do to me if that happened. Like, just wow. Like, you gotta give the guy credit for that, man. That's crazy.
100%, Dan. And every time you and I talk to Marcus, we're inspired even more by hearing that same conversation, around the fact that he had all of that going for him. He had everything coming off the back of his career, and to lose everything and to have to start again, to see your car getting repoed night sort of thing. How do you go through that? How do you fight that adversity then to turn yourself around? Wait and hear from the man. He's going to be speaking on the 11th, December the 11th at the event. The event's free. That's the other thing to talk about here. The event is free.
Yeah.
So look, what we're going to do in this show today is, for everyone that's online right now, feel free to talk to us about challenges you have right now. What sort of things are you finding? You probably get a lot of the answers that you're looking for at this event around sales, around customer service, around management, around leadership, around how you manage your team, around how you get your results, around how you make your business more profitable. A lot of that will be discussed, but what's important to you guys right now is what's important to us, right? This is an open forum, so it's an opportunity to be able to talk about those things. One of the things I want to talk about right now, because you've probably seen a few emails coming out from me and a few posts coming out from me of recent. Mm-hmm. Stress is the biggest productivity killer right now. It is the biggest productivity killer. There is so much that stress is responsible for that's holding people back. So how is everyone dealing with the stress levels right now in their sales working environment? Dan?
Nick, it's a great question. And, I in having conversations with a lot of my students and speaking to a lot of people, I'm asking them the questions. And you know what I've found, and I've recently put it together probably over the last 3-4 weeks, is the ones that I see out of the handful of people that I coach on a weekly basis, the ones that aren't stressed are the ones that would be pushing to fill their pipeline. I'm speaking with people where they're saying, no, I'm good. I'm not stressed. I'm having the conversations I need to have. Deals aren't going through, and maybe I'm closing 10% less deals, 15% less deals. But I've managed to, during the entire pandemic, I've been filling my pipeline. I'm being real strict and cautious and precise about who I want. And I find those people actually have, now I'm not talking about a general COVID issue. I'm talking business, just business, right? They have expressed, like, listen, I have challenges, we're getting frustrated with each other very quickly at home when it comes to like spouses and stuff. But in a business perspective, their business is actually doing really well because they kept pushing for pipeline. And in contrast, then I speak with other people and they say, people that are just getting into the business are stressed out because companies are demanding results, they're not getting them. But people that, and what's the word I want to use, Nick? I know you and I have spoken about it a little bit before, but people that took the beginning of the pandemic as that vacation. And when I say that, working from home, deciding to wake up at 8:30 instead of 6, or, you know what I mean? Like, that change, that mentality of that drive. I find them more stressed. Does that seem weird to you at all? Because to me, I just kind of put this together, going through obviously a lot of your posts and listening to Mandy Morris on the NRDD show. And in those conversations, I started really to again, and it goes back to what Tara and I were talking about, sort of change my perspective and start looking at it and start asking the questions. You know, what do you find from your end, like on your end of the world? Are you finding the same thing, or are you just finding it mass stress everywhere?
Look, I think one of the key things is being prepared, and
Mhm.
structure will very quickly help you to alleviate those stress levels, right? So if you're working through your pipeline and you're looking at what you've got going on, you know you've got the numbers there, you've just got to work through closing those deals. That's going to help you to alleviate a lot of that stress, right? So
Mhm.
we're seeing, I guess, a combination between some stressed out businesses, but also some businesses that are doing really, really well right now,
Yeah.
overperforming because they were always really good. They were always really equipped. They were always really well structured. They were always really prepared. And those businesses knew exactly when this pandemic hit what they're going to need to do with their sales teams, what they're going to need to do with their management to be able to get in there, have great conversations with their clients, and make them feel like it was a very smooth transition from sort of, the real world to the virtual world back to the real world. So that's kind of a
But I mean,
combination of.
also there's always corporations. Like there's always opportunity in crisis, right? So for everyone watching, let's take it back to the High Performance Sales Summit. The High Performance Logistics Sales Summit was designed to bring 25 international experts, the knowledge, the compound wisdom, the synergy of all of them together to help. I think we had 220 seats in one building. Now, okay, so let's walk through this for a second, Nick, and look at the perspective. Yes, I'll be the first one to say, Nick, and I know you feel the same way. It was shattering when we got shut down. Like beyond shattering. I mean, months of work, effort, blood, sweat, tears, as people say. We're literally one afternoon. I remember vividly my wife walking in the office and saying, "I think you have to cancel." I said, "No, no, no, no." I said, "We'll be okay." I said, "This isn't going to hit for another month. We'll sneak it in. It's going to be exactly what people need if we do get locked down." She goes, "No, it was just declared a pandemic," and literally 3 hours, I think, after that, the event's canceled. Nick, your flight's canceled to come to Canada. Marcus Ogden flight's canceled. Sean Shuchuk's flight's canceled. All of the presenters, speakers, experts, all canceled. And I remember vividly, it's so emotional. I remember vividly sitting there that night going, holy shit, this is crazy. Like, you want to give back to a community, to an industry that's given you everything you've ever had in life. This industry, the logistics transportation, it's given me. I met my wife in this industry, the love of my life. I'm a grade 9 dropout, and I've got everything I've ever wanted from this industry, and I just wanted to give back. But now, Nick, now that the perspective has changed, we can give back to so many more than we were able to by being constrained to four walls. Now, obviously, I know, like from your perspective, you'd much rather be here on stage where live audience. Like for everyone that's watching this, that's been at these live events. Yeah, there's an energy in a live event, but we're going to try and bring it. We're going to bring that energy. And you know what? In the end, I've always said the medium doesn't matter so much as the message, right? Like some of you listening or watching this right now will listen to it on my podcast, and the information is the same. The consumption variable is different. But as you're driving or as you're running or as you're doing your workout or whatever you're doing when you're listening to this, you're consuming it, right? And something Nick or I are going to say is going to hit your ear, or you're watching this, you're visually, you're going to be like, damn, that was it. And that's still going to help you make that dramatic change to achieve your greatness, to achieve high performance, right? So, Nick, I look at this and I say, yes, challenging. Does it put us in a different spot? But what about the opportunity it gives us? What about the opportunity it's going to give you to knock the socks off of everybody at this event? To me, that's worth much more than the challenges we faced in March.
Oh, look, and there's no question, the second that we knew that this wasn't going to go ahead, you look back over the planning, you look back over the calls that we had done, the hype that we had built, all that stuff. It was there, it was ready, and it was devastating. There's no question about it. I remember looking back in 2019 and going, HBS Summit is everywhere, Dan. It was everywhere. It was on people's lips. It was the talk. It was can't wait to see this event. Then COVID hit, and all of a sudden we lost all of that momentum. The key thing I want to sort of stress to everyone watching this right now is get your free ticket. That's what I'm saying to you,
Yes.
right? It wasn't free first time around. Obviously, there was relevant costs that need to be covered with the use of the Mississauga Central, that sort of thing. So there was lots of different things that came into play. But this is free. Don't miss this. This is the online event that is free for you guys. What kind of things can you expect to sort of see and hear? Imagine just a day of excitement, energy, great nuggets being shared left, right, and center from all sorts of speakers, but also look at it from the point of view of, so many different things are going to come up in that day that are going to be relevant to you. Like Dan said, it might be one or two things that are suddenly important to you. Right now, I know so many people are struggling looking after their customers. It's just no secret. They are just struggling to understand how to have conversations and look after their customers, and this churn factor is coming into play. They're losing customers, right? And they're seeing their customer retention as a real big problem. I'm going to talk through client retention at quite deep level detail and talk about the reality of what it means to retain your customer. You're going to have people like Sean Schutak talking about things like, for example, leadership. You're going to have Marcus talking about, the high performance side of the mindset you need to have to stay ahead. You don't want to miss this, right? I definitely want to make that clear. For anyone that's watching, what I've found is when I've watched an event or a virtual event, you pick up one or two things and they become what I call catalysts for change in your life. All right. So if you can find one or two of those things in this event, that's that catalyst for change. This could be the difference between looking at your pipeline and going, I've got enough, and looking at your pipeline and going, my pipeline is way too scarce. There's just not enough detail in there. There's not enough opportunity in there. I don't have a milestone against it. So I'm not sort of gauging it and going, this deal's ready to close now. This deal will close in 3 months' time. And a lot of salespeople go through a process of going, I've got the pipeline, where are the sales? Well, that's not the case. That's not how it works. You've got to have the pipeline, and you've got to have the milestone next to that to go, these are the opportunities that are closing this month. For businesses that are struggling right now, to learn how to close in the same month, to learn how to actually get your pipeline closed down the same month, that's invaluable, Dan. That is invaluable.
Mm-hmm.
I will be talking about how the first week is collating information and breaking down what you're doing with your sales pipeline. And the first and second week, and the third and fourth week is always about closing those opportunities and looking at your invoicing. For a business that's sitting there right now and going, it's great that we're selling, but invoicing is key, right? Am I right, Dan? It's great that you're selling.
Oh, yeah.
You've actually got to invoice the customer. You've actually got to be sending them, a receipt for what it is they're purchasing. Because at the end of the day, if you're delaying your timeframes too long and you're pushing out your deliveries too long, it's still going to affect your business. You're still going to have cash flow issues. So I just believe there's going to be so much value packed into this. And then I believe from the point of view of the people that are in this industry, in 2008, 2009 in New Zealand, and a wee bit in Australia here, or New Zealand, but in Australia also, we went through the recession and it hit the transport industry something serious. The margins were so low already. All of a sudden, there was real major problems from the point of view of how they were delivering, how they were continuing to deliver the good service at the low margins they had. And they had to make some fundamental change. And GPS, right? The GPS systems became a big part of how they understood how their businesses could be more profitable, recording off-road kilometers, making sure that they knew where their vehicles were going and what they were being driven for and all that sort of thing. And it changed the game overnight. I remember the fuel management systems that came in with GPS were so pivotal at that time. To learn about that, to find out about things like what other countries have done to help their situation with being more profitable in the transport logistic industry will be invaluable.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the backbone of the entire summit is education and collaboration, right? It's the backbone. And in today's environment, it's education and collaboration will win. The ones that are paranoid, the ones that are retreating in paranoia are going to lose. The ones that are continuing to expand, to reaching out, not being afraid to say to a customer, hey, listen, I'm not real sure, but let me get the answers. And let me go collaborate with somebody on the answers and let's get it. These are the ones that are going to win. These are really the companies that are going to succeed. And I don't want this entire show to be a pitch, but the reality is, if you're a go-getter and if you truly want to change your 2021, this is the event for you. It really is. This is the one for you to be at, no matter what. We've got a client panel where we're ranging from 100,000 to over 4 million in annual freight spend. The Q&A session on that client panel, Nick, I know is going to probably blow the socks off. It's probably going to break the internet. It's like I could just imagine the people that are going to want to pick the brains of these traffic managers. Our expert panel. If you're an OTR rep, understand that 92% of everything you touched is touched an ocean container. From that ocean container, it's touched a rail line. From that rail line, it's probably touched a warehouse. Then from that warehouse, it's touched your truck. So you look at the supply chain as a whole. We are bringing in specific experts for every part of that supply chain for you. Because in the end, if the backbone's education and collaboration, you need to understand the way things move, how they move. When this ripple happens here, what happens to the main ocean over here? And how does it all work together in an ecosystem that we call the industry of transportation and final mile? Right? I mean, Nick, it's gold, man. It's the event to be at for sales reps, right? If you're, go.
I've got a question here, mate. Sorry to cut you. I've got a question here. If I'm focusing on client retention, do I focus on my bigger customers or my smaller customers first? You go first, brother. I'll answer that next.
Okay, so if you're focusing on client retention, do you focus on your biggest customers or your smaller customers? You focus on them all. And I'll give you one strategy that can help you retain clients longer than anything is, depending on your volume of business, if you're doing big volume, big customer, or depending on the lower volumes, I'm not going to say small customer, but lower volumes. Every minimum of maximum length of time, every 3 months, you ask 3 questions. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? What can I improve on? And if you focus on those 3 questions, because in the end, sales is about goal attainment. So how are you helping your clients achieve their goals? If you help your clients achieve their goals and you ask those 3 questions to your client regularly, you will have your clients longer, because I guarantee no one else is asking them those questions, which shows them you care about what's going on in your industry. You care about them as an individual. Most clients, as sad as it is, we gave ourselves this name. Most clients say to me, Dan, I just wish I got taken care of when the guy's doing business or the girl's doing business with me, as much as when they were trying to get me in their door.
Yeah,
that's my answer, Nick.
Yeah, I love that, Dan. And the answer, there with the, asking the right questions and asking those 3 specific questions you did right, that will have a massive impact, because you'll find out what's going wrong and what's going right early rather than later. Look, one of the things I talk about, and I want to touch base on this with this very question, is when you're looking at your small clients and your large clients, do not be afraid to prioritize. Put them into A, B, C category, right? Prioritize your client base. Actually go through and say, these are my A clients, these are my B clients, these are my C clients. What I found when I was doing this over 10 years ago with regards to a company that had thousands of clients that wanted to retain is, if all of your focus is on your A clients, you will find you're going to miss out on a whole lot of C's and B's that make up a big number, right? So the scary thing is you have a lot of smaller customers that make up a very big volume of your revenue number. Don't miss out on that volume revenue number. So what I tend to do is I tend to map out, here are my A clients, here are my B clients, here are my C clients. Your A clients might not necessarily be your biggest spenders. They might just be your marquee client. They might just be the one that's using some of your service, but they're not actually using as much as your service as a C client. They're just not that large, right? Your A client may be someone, for example, that has a much bigger global footprint. Do you put time and effort into that person that's spending less with you, or do you put more time and effort to the person that's spending more with you but as a smaller client? So really prioritize them. The other thing I add to this is this, making sure that you are prioritizing by some kind of metric, right? You're prioritizing by volume, prioritizing by opportunity, or you're prioritizing by current revenue spend. You see, if you don't do that, what you're going to do is spend a whole lot of time putting time and effort into a customer that probably your competitor is going to pick up in a few weeks. You haven't looked after them, you haven't nurtured them. They're a huge client, they're a huge global client, but really there's not a lot of loyalty there either. And you'll probably find that while you're chipping away at that B client, A client, someone else comes along and takes 2 or 3 of your C clients. So you've really got to prioritize, you've really got to put metrics against those. The metrics I use are either volume, opportunity, or based on current spend. And also look at trends. Look at what those clients were spending with you. Are they actually still a large-scale client for you, or did they used to spend money with you, but they stopped spending a while ago, but you've only just looked in your books now and realized that, and all of a sudden you've been putting time and effort into this client that's no longer spending with you. What you always find out is if they're not spending with you, they're generally spending with your competitor, or they're spending somewhere else. It's always the way.
Yep, I agree. I agree.
So I hope that helps there, Evan. Yeah, look, one of the things I want to touch base on as well is the importance of setting up meetings. A lot of people set meetings and they set these meetings up and just go, right, I've got this meeting set with this client, I've got 5 of them for the week. Great. I think what COVID's taught so many of us, Dan, is you can't just set a meeting these days. You actually need to set up a meeting. What time zone does a person live in? How indifferent is that to your time zone? When will that see you getting up? When will that see them being in their business time frame? And also, how have you made that appointment stick? How have you made that appointment concrete? Have you sent them an email to follow up and say, hey, we've got a meeting coming up? Have you sent them a calendar invite? Have you noticed that you're sending calendar invites a lot more these days than you used to? See, to set up a Zoom meeting with a client these days, you have to set them a calendar invite. You bring them into the meeting and you make sure that they're ready for the meeting a couple of days beforehand. I don't think anyone was doing that, Dan. I don't think. Oh,
Well,
no,
I do, Nick. I think people were, like, when it came to meetings in person and stuff. I mean, personally, I can only speak for myself. I've always been a calendar invite. What I find that I'm amping up is the direction of the meeting, the goals of the meeting, um, almost like an itinerary of the meeting, without being so, blah blah blah, blah like. Blah. I'm finding that for me, anyways, when I'm going into meetings now, it's okay. What's the intention? What is the intention of the meeting? And I'm using my life equation a lot more, where I say, is this meeting going to get me closer to or further away from my goal? Is this interaction? Is this phone call? Is this conversation? If I bring this person into my podcast, will it get me closer to or further away from my goal? And that's really driving where I allocate my time, because if I'm going to have a conversation with, and I'll bring it back to transportation. So, for all of you prospecting right now, you prospect. Will that prospecting call get you closer to or further away from your goal? Most likely get you closer to, because the more people you touch, the more people you're going to qualify, the more people you can start having conversations with. But what I find is challenging for salespeople at this point in time is they're not getting to the meat and potatoes, right? It's still the, hey, how's the weather? And just what is your client profile? And address it, hit it right on the head. I often say to so many people, and if you listen to me, you're probably getting to say it, 8 mile it, right? 8 mile. Just right. This is what it is. Mr. Prospect, I believe that, transportation is a resource. Do you believe that as well, or are you more in transactional operations? And if they're in transactional, don't waste their time. Don't waste your time, because in the end, the relationship will never work, right? To me, Nick, I think as a sales rep in today's economy, we have to set ourselves up for long-term growth, long-term high performance, because I think we're wasting our time if we don't. I mean, if you have an ebb and flow business where you're transactional and you go in and it's all about price and it's about $5 here and $1 there, and you're kind of in that groove, or you're in that, as they call, the grind, and you're grinding, eventually that gets annoying, or it wears on you, and it destroys you. Then what happens to your business? As opposed to, and Nick, I'd love your thoughts on this, because as opposed to setting up your business now for what it's going to look like 5, 10, 15 years down the road with the same customers, right? To me, that's the way to grow a business in the new age, if you will.
your screen just froze up for a few seconds, but I heard you the whole time, so it's fine. Look, I just and I totally agree with you, Dan. Going back to the point that I was making now about setting up those customer meetings, we've done the NRDD show now for 2 seasons, right? We know for a fact that one of the things that our first group of students, and then when we went online, everyone was really appreciating, learning and listening to was, we called the bullshit, right? And one of the things I'm calling on this is bullshit. So many people were not setting up meetings, using calendar invites, using an agenda, and actually having an understanding of what their customers want. And I think if we can take something away from what COVID has really pushed us into, is you can't just jump on now to a virtual meeting with someone and just expect to shoot the breeze. You actually have to have some kind of understanding of why they're getting on with you, because people's time is important, and it takes a bit longer to do a Zoom meeting than it takes to just walk into someone's room now, someone's office now, and have a conversation with them like we used to face, right? So I do think
there's
right,
different dynamics involved, right? If their team's all mobile, now they've got 15 more calls to make every day, or 15 more people to organize, and that's, again, we go back to perspective, right? The word perspective, right? What has been an addition to their days because of this, and how much more strained are they on time, right? How many companies right now are putting 2 and 3 times the work on people to try and get things done? Everybody's pushing for this last, to try and make 2020 not a bust, I guess. I don't know if that's proper English, but you know what I'm saying.
For sure. And look, what I'm saying that is because there's a lot of time that needs to be spent setting up these meetings so that you get the result you're looking for. That's what I'm coming back to, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And you find out what it is your customer wants, and you've had the conversations, and you know what it is. When you're setting up that sort of closing meeting, you're going to be able to close it. You're going to be able to have a conversation that should lead to a close. You can't get to that point if you haven't had a first meeting. If you haven't actually found out what it is they want, if you haven't found out what it is that, for use of the bad sort of saying, is their pain points, if you haven't found out what it is that is the right solution, the fit for their business, their challenges, their current challenges, if you haven't found that out, and you haven't got to that level of detail in your meetings, in your Zoom meetings, or in your face-to-face meetings, you will struggle to close deals this year. There's no question about it. And we're definitely seeing some of that, my friend, aren't we? Where business, salespeople are saying it's harder than it was. There's no question it's harder than it was. But also, we've got to be more strategic. We've got to be smarter than we were before, because it takes a different approach when you have the circumstances change. And the circumstances change, no question.
1,000%. I agree with you, brother. 1,000%.
All right, mate. Well, look, that's probably another season, another show.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? These are awesome. We're gonna keep bringing you them. I think it's even if we come out with more of a Q&A and a general perspective conversation. We'll see y'all in the new year, and for all those of you in the US, happy holidays and happy Thanksgiving. What are we, Tuesday today? So Wednesday, Thursday, I guess Thursday. Enjoy yourselves, be safe, be healthy. What else you got to say, Nick?
Well, I tell you what, Dan, one thing I've heard so much is people are saying now there's a lot to do with this impromptu stuff, right? This improv stuff online, right? So I think, we talked about, in our next season, we're going to bring on sort of, using different characters and using different sort of, impressions and stuff like that. So give me your best impression right now, Dan, right off the bat. He doesn't know I was going to do this, guys. Give me your best impression.
Okay, so probably for me, I've always loved Rodney Dangerfield. Hey, I get no respect. That would be probably for me.
That's awesome, man. You know one of my favorites, right?
Yes,
When I go into this mode deep in the voice a bit, and I start to bring in the old Stone Cold Steve Austin, and that's the bottom line. And you don't know one thing, son. We're going to bring the best season 3, and that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.
Nick's a WWE fan off air. Y'all don't know that.
All right, guys,
he's got a full ring in his basement. He flies from turnbuckles when nobody's looking. All right, guys, take care.
See you in season 3.